Deep in the Earth's geological record, in rock layers that are millions and millions of years old, scientists are finding things that, well, they just shouldn't be there. We're talking about traces of industrial processes, synthetic materials, even nuclear activity. We've always just kind of assumed we were the first technological show on Earth. But what if we're wrong? What if we're just the latest chapter in a story that's unbelievably old?
So let's really lean into that question for a minute. What if we are not the first? This one idea, it challenges everything we think we know about our planet's history and our own place in it. Is it possible that entire advanced civilizations could have risen, fallen, and been almost completely erased by the sheer scale of deep time?
Now, this isn't just some wild sci-fi plot. It's a real thought experiment from actual scientists, and it's called the Silurian Hypothesis. The basic idea is pretty simple. If an industrial civilization like ours existed, say, 100 million years ago, what would be left of it today? What kind of evidence would it leave behind? And maybe the biggest question of all, would we even recognize those clues if we stumbled right over them?
To really get this, you have to wrap your head around what scientists call deep time. Look at this timeline. It shows Earth's entire 4.5 billion year history. And our whole industrial age, it's that tiny, almost invisible sliver way over on the right. A civilization that lasted for 10,000 years could just disappear into this timeline. Poof, gone. Buildings crumble, metal rusts away, but some fingerprints, some echoes, might just survive.
Okay, so if you were going to look for one of these lost civilizations, where would you even start? Well, you'd start with the most permanent record we have, the rock right beneath our feet. We're on the hunt for weird anomalies in the geology, for the fingerprints left in stone.
And the first major clue is a real shocker. About 252 million years ago, there was the Great Dying, the biggest mass extinction this planet has ever seen. Right at that boundary layer in the rock, scientists found a carbon signature. And the scale of this thing, it's so huge that it's basically the equivalent of burning every last chunk of coal, every drop of oil, and all the natural gas on the entire planet all at once.
And this right here is where it gets really weird. When you compare the chemical signature, the carbon isotopes from that ancient event, to the signature of our own modern industrial pollution, they're a nearly perfect match. It's this incredibly unsettling echo across 250 million years.
Now, for sure, the traditional theory points to things like massive volcanic eruptions. But the sheer speed and the specific chemical nature of that carbon release have made some scientists ask a pretty uncomfortable question. Are we just looking at a really bad natural disaster, or could this be the clearest fingerprint of a predecessor's industrial age, an age that ended in a global catastrophe?
And believe me, it is not just about the carbon. Geologists are finding all sorts of other strange things. There are these mysterious gaps in the fossil record, where complex life just seems to appear out of nowhere. They're finding microscopic spheres of rare metals that look identical to industrial byproducts, but in rock that's way older than humans. And even layers of synthetic compounds on ancient ocean floors that have no known natural source.
So, the evidence starts to build, from these subtle chemical fingerprints to something way more direct, the potential ghosts of lost technology. If a civilization really existed, surely their tech would have left a mark, right? Just think about our own society for a second. Long, long after our cities have turned to dust, our most permanent legacy will probably be plastic. These tiny microscopic particles are going to settle into sediment layers, and they'll create a clear, unmistakable techno-signature for any future geologists to find. So the question is, have we found any older ones?
And incredibly, the answer seems to be yes. Scientists have actually found microscopic particles that look just like synthetic polymers in sediment cores and deep Antarctic ice that date back millions of years. And here's the kicker. Some of these fragments show a molecular complexity that is actually more advanced than our own modern plastics. It suggests a pretty sophisticated understanding of material science.
Okay, but if synthetic materials are one clue, what about energy? This is where we get to probably the most startling evidence. Back in 1972, scientists found something amazing in Oklo, Africa, a natural nuclear reactor that was running 2 billion years ago. Now, the super important point here is that this discovery gave us a baseline. We now know exactly what the isotopic signature of nuclear activity, whether it's natural or artificial, looks like when it's left behind in rock. So, knowing what that signature looks like, how many continents show evidence of this kind of ancient nuclear activity? 6.
On 6 different continents, geologists have found isotopic signatures in rock layers that are millions of years old, and they do not match natural reactors. They do, however, match with terrifying precision the fallout from modern nuclear weapons testing.
This kind of evidence points to something beyond just a simple industrial civilization. It suggests one with incredibly powerful, world-altering technology. Which brings us to our third section. The idea that maybe these predecessors weren't just living on the planet, maybe they were engineering it. Wow, just look at this chart. You see, tiny air bubbles trapped in ancient amber give us these perfect little snapshots of past atmospheres. And in some of these samples, the oxygen levels are as high as 35%, a huge, totally unnatural spike compared to our 21%. The chemical ratios suggest this wasn't some fluke of nature, but maybe the result of large-scale atmospheric processing. You know, something you might do to support a massive population.
And let's circle back to the Great Dying for a second. It wasn't just the carbon spike that was weird, the extinction itself was strangely selective. It didn't just wipe out species at random like you'd expect from a natural disaster. Instead, it looks like specific organisms were surgically removed while others were left untouched. It's a pattern that's chillingly consistent with, say, the deployment of advanced, targeted biological weapons.
You know, once you start looking for it, the evidence for planetary scale management seems to be everywhere. We see these repeated industrial-style spikes in greenhouse gases in ancient ice cores. We find the chemical traces of aerosols that look like they were designed to modify the climate. And, maybe most incredible of all, ground-penetrating radar data has hinted at vast geometric structures, things that look very artificial, buried 2 miles under the Antarctic ice sheet.
So, if a civilization was advanced enough to engineer an entire planet and then faced its own collapse, do you think they'd try to leave a message? Section 4 dives into this absolutely fascinating idea. What if they made an intentional effort to communicate across geological time?
So how on earth could you even do that? How do you leave a message that lasts millions of years? Well, this is where the hypothesis gets truly mind-bending, exploring ideas we are just now starting to understand. Theorists wonder if complex data, things like mathematics, star charts, technical guides, could be encoded into the molecular structure of super-stable crystals, or maybe into the very DNA of organisms that get preserved in amber, or maybe, just maybe, into the fabric of space-time itself, the ultimate time capsule.
So what would be the purpose of these messages? It seems to be a mix of two things, warnings and technical guides. Some of the data looks like a how-to manual for sustainable planetary management, but others seem to be very stark warnings about the exact technologies that led to their own downfall. It almost feels like the information was designed to be a locked box, one that would only open when a new civilization, us, became advanced enough to understand it, and frankly, when we need it the most.
And that leads us to our final and maybe the most important section of all. What is the ultimate message of the Silurian hypothesis? What is this warning that's echoing from the deep past right into our present moment?
Well, when you pull back and look at all the pieces of evidence together, a really disturbing pattern starts to emerge. It's a cycle of rapid technological rise, achieving incredible feats of planetary engineering. But that's followed by unsustainable misuse, conflict, and then, ultimately, a collapse so complete that they almost vanish into the geological record. And this cycle, it looks like it may have happened more than once.
But here's the thing. Here is where our story could be different. This quote really nails it. Unlike any civilization that might have come before us, we are the first ones who can actually read the geological record. We can see the warning. We have the data from their failures. We have a chance, maybe the first chance ever, to actually learn from their mistakes.
Which leaves us with the final, ultimate question. See, the Silurian hypothesis isn't really just about the past. It's a mirror. It's reflecting our own path right now. The rocks tell this story of rise and fall, of incredible achievement followed by what looks like self-destruction. The patterns of our predecessors are echoing all around us in our own time. So we have to ask ourselves, is our future already written in the rocks? Are we doomed to just repeat this cycle, or can we be the first ones to write a different ending to the story?